on? Welcome to another episode of Own the Outcome. My name is Tyler Devereaux, and today we're here with Chris Holt. Chris, thanks for being on the podcast, bro.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you, man. Chris is a fitness beast, great with nutrition, exercise, workouts. We're going to talk about, beyond the tats. Those of you who watch it on YouTube, you'll see he has a number of those. And I would love to know, actually, let's just dive into that, bro. Like, I love the name from the very get, but I want to know your deeper purpose behind that name.
Oh, my handle. Yeah, because I think we all naturally do it, but I think a lot of people look at me and it's very easy to place preconceived notions or judgment based on what I look like. And I think, let's be honest, the first time I saw someone with face tattoos and neck tattoos and hand tattoos, I was like, ugh, So I think a lot of people, especially what I do and how I look, I think a lot of people think, oh, he's just like a gym bro with just lots of tats, when really there's a lot more to me than the ink.
So. Yeah. Well, I have to be honest with you. I started following you because, dude, you're in great shape. I strive to be in great shape. I like to follow people that inspire me to be in great shape. And obviously you talk about things that help, with that. You have a whole program about that as well. But then I get to know you more and about your topics and what you talk about. And you are way more than that, like if you're actually, in fact, you're very deep in your content, and one of the things that I loved about it is that you're very open with what you share. You've done amazing things in your life, and as you go through your resume of what you've done. And those of you who don't know Chris or don't follow Chris, you're one of a few on the planet who don't. So you're going to get to know him today for sure. But go follow him if you don't, and you'll see that, man, you've done a bunch of things, but you've also struggled. You've had struggles. And the name of the podcast is Own the Outcome Podcast. Like, that's the name of it. So when I say own the outcome to you, what does that mean to you?
I think a big inflection point for me in my life was once I changed my mindset of believing that things happen to me things happen to me, but I changed that to things happen for me. When you play the victim card, you take no ownership over your situation. And it's a blame game. It's like, well, I'm not here because of that person. I'm not here because of that situation. And then it's just like, things are happening to me. And it's like, look, in my life, no matter how terrible the situation was, it happened for me. And you can choose to use that as fuel, or you can choose to use it as a scapegoat. And I think that's what comes to mind when I think about the title of your podcast.
I agree with that. I mean, that is literally that's what fueled the name of the podcast for me, because I played the victim card far longer than I played the ownership card. And in fact, I would go into a new situation and I would look for people to blame just in case it didn't go right.
Yeah, it's easier, right? It's always easy to do that. And I always, in my life at this point, my brothers and I are going to be 42 next month. I obsessively seek out difficult things, right? Because that's the only way you grow, right? So
that's it, dude. You said you obsessively seek out, is that the word you used?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great word, man. Obsessively seek out things that are challenging. And you said your brothers, he's a triplet. For those of you who don't know, a triplet, which has to be a crazy, I don't know your brother, are they as cut and fit as you?
Justin works out. I don't think he's as stringent with his nutrition than I am. And then Jeremy, I think he's gone out of his way to just be different. Just because, I think he had a lot of issues growing up being identical triplet. He felt like that took away from his identity. So he went out of his way to just be very different. So, I know that he has a rowing machine at home, which is great, but he doesn't lift weights, and he very different body type and just different lifestyle. So.
Got you. Okay. Let's talk about your program, man. You have an online coaching program, and it's based, you'll do some fitness routines, but it's basically mostly on nutrition. So help me understand. I love how you said it, because you say that it's something along the lines of you help people change their relationship with food.
Yes. So I think everyone can understand that, you can work out, great. but we see millions of people go to 24-hour fitness working out 6 days a week and they all look the same, right? They never change. And because you can crush yourself for an hour in the gym every day, but the next 23 hours you can quickly undo. And I think the problem is that now more than ever, people are struggling mentally, psychologically. And food is just a quick comfort. It's a quick little Band-Aid. It's a quick hit of dopamine. It's, and so my program really helps people not only address daily issues that they face and how they use food to cope, or some people starve themselves. It's either or. And learning how to create, stress management tools, giving them reframing, helping them develop, other tools to work through those moments that are never really going away. I mean, people look at me and they're like, wow, man, like you got it all figured out. It must just get easier. I'm like, I don't know what world you live in, but I feel like it's harder, right? I think the difference between me and other people is that my tolerance for difficult is higher than yours. And that's it, right? So we all have heard the adage, like, you live outside your comfort zone. Growth happens outside your comfort zone, which sounds cliche, but it's true, right? Because being comfortable is easy. So let's just, get you out of that comfort zone, which is what I provide, is just 24/7 daily accountability. So I call it almost extreme accountability, where my clients have to send me 3 food pictures a day. They have to reach out to me when they're having a difficult moment. If they're in a social setting where they have a lot of temptations around them, they're unprepared, they're going to a restaurant, they're, having a moment where they're just super anxious or depressed and they want to use something to cope, they can text me. I'm on call 24/7. So giving that type of support, because at the end of the day, without daily accountability, consistency drops to 0 over time. And without consistency, it's physically impossible to create a new habit, let alone a new lifestyle.
That's so good, dude. There's so much to unpack from what you just went through. So the consistency portion, I believe that is the shortcut. Consistency is the shortcut for any result.
Consistency always outworks and is greater, in my opinion, than motivation. I think motivation fallacy. I think too often people are like, how do you stay motivated? How do you get motivated? And I tell people, the number one thought I think every morning, and this is my default, it's unfortunate, but I just think, I look in the mirror and the first thing I think is, what's the point? And so for a long time, struggling with my mental illness, like, I just realized, look, how many times do I want to work out? I rarely want to work out, right? But I've just made it a routine and I'm consistently doing it, so that now it's like, okay, it doesn't take me a lot of bandwidth to do it, but I know I chase the feeling of how I feel afterwards, because I never really want, honestly, I'm not motivated to work out. So it has nothing to do with motivation. It's just about consistency. Your appearance is a consequence of what you do every day.
Yeah, dude. You just said, so I love working out, not because I love the workout process. I'm the same thing. I love it. It's a hack, man. You chase the feeling that you get at the end. And there's never been one time that I've walked out of the gym and be like, shit, I wish I would have just sat home and done nothing.
Yeah, you always regret not working out. You never regret working out. So that's for me, that's how it is. And I play mind games with myself. So if I do my workout every day, and then I'll go for a 75-minute walk. And there are so many days where I'm like, every time I say to myself, I don't feel like walking. Damn it. Now I have to do it. Right. So I just do a little game with myself. So and it works.
But these are the hacks that I want people to tap into. You gamify chasing the feeling that you at the end. You gamify, man, now I have to because I said I don't want to. It's like you reframe it. You literally reframe. I also love, one of the things that you said is that when one of your clients has something that they're being tempted by, or they're wanting to cope with something, because a lot of people think of drug addiction, alcohol, all those things are big things, but there's nothing that kills people more than the other stuff, which is food. People just poison themselves with food.
Look, I have had many clients who are people that have overcome heroin, cocaine addictions, alcohol, opioids, and they all say the same thing.
What is up, y'all? Listen, if this podcast has brought joy or value at some point as you're listening to it, we would love it if you would be so kind as to leave us a review down below. That is how we keep this thing moving and finding individuals just like you to pour value into. Now let's get back to the show.
kicking processed sugar has been more challenging than kicking those things. And that's pretty profound, right? I never want to demonize sugar. I think that's where we get kind of like, that's where I separate myself. It's like, I will never say something's good, bad, healthy, or unhealthy. I think those labels reinforce negative relationships to food that we all have from our childhood, right? So I like to change those words to it's either on plan, off plan, favorable or unfavorable, because at the end of the day, I have nothing against processed sugar. If you are where you want to be and you have control over your choices. But if you're using those things to cope with stress, to cope with emotions, that's more of the issue rather than the food itself, right? So, by demonizing things, which people do all the time, especially on social media, and it bugs the shit out of me, this is only reinforcing all the issues, right? So it's about just reframing, like you said, changing the words that we use, right? And that can have a profound impact long-term.
Yeah, the language you use is powerful.
Yeah,
How do you do that? Because it takes some self-awareness for somebody to recognize that they're coping with it instead of just being like, well, no, I'm like, because you said, as long as you're where you want to be and you're not using it to cope. Well, some people would say that they're where they are, want to be, and they'll justify it. So it takes some self-awareness. How do you help people gain that?
So it's really, it always boils down to confession sessions that happen, right? So they're supposed to text me anything that they eat or drink. They need to text me a picture of it. And we're really sticking to 3 balanced meals in the beginning. So avoid snacking, gets most people in trouble. But what happens is obviously they don't take a photo, they do something, and then they come to me later with that confession, right? I call it a confession session. And so what happens from there, someone might say, well, I didn't send this picture, but I ate a cookie. And most people's reaction is, don't yell at me. I was like, first and foremost, I'm not going to yell at you. I think that's just more of a projection of you yelling at yourself. But, I don't really care about the cookie. Like, what were the circumstances surrounding the decision? And 100% of the time, well, I got in a fight with my spouse, or someone said something to me at work that really upset me, or I lost my job, or my dog died, or something, which is part of life, right? And then I say, look, we need to recognize that, right? That you chose the cookie because you were using that to cope with whatever that situation is. So now we reverse engineer that, because guess what? Death is part of life. You can't control what people say or do. I work with primarily women and mothers, and I work with a lot of women that are single mothers, or women that are coming out of abusive relationships, or have terrible ex-husbands or ex-spouses. And that's the number one thing. Oh, well, I saw my ex today and it just triggered me, and then I had some ice cream. And then I'll give them a reframe, say, hey, now look at it like this. If that person did something that you have no control over, and it caused you to go eat ice cream, which is not benefiting you right now, that person controls you. And in my life, I'm controlling me. And then right off the bat, they're like, holy shit, no, I don't want him controlling me. I'm like, yeah. So then that's kind of like it. Or people will come to me and they'll say, this is so hard. And I was like, look, if you say it's so hard, it's going to feel 10 times harder. Let's change the word. And I say this all the time. Let's call it a challenge. It's challenging, right? Challenges are meant to be overcome. You overcome a challenge, I equate that to slaying a dragon. Now we have empirical evidence you can slay dragons, and guess what? There's going to be more dragons in your future. So you can choose to be a dragon slayer or just victim, right? In my life, I want to slay fucking dragons. Let's go, right? That's enough to be like, oh man, like, okay, right? But it's also
Owning the out. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, it's also just teaching people that most people just need to take a second, take a breath. Don't be reactive. And I try to explain, when you have emotions that are overwhelming, by all means, feel them, but observe them. Don't let them take you away with the tide, right? And so it's like, I always equate with Headspace. It was a great app. It's a great app, right? And there was a huge takeaway in the beginning when I watched one of these cute cartoons. It was like, the goal of being present and feeling emotions is to essentially be sitting on a bench watching the cars go by. Each car is an emotion. Your goal is to just watch them go by. Don't chase that car down the road, right? And it's really challenging, right? But it's a skill like anything else, that the more we are consistently aware of it, the more we can practice those things as they happen. And that's why I'm on call 24/7, so we can talk about those things in real time.
That's so good, bro, and so valuable. Like, dude, it's a massive. Any of y'all who are, I mean, this is coming out, you know, this will come around right around, you know, Black Friday type time, and people are preparing for the new year, and it's like people just do. If you're struggling with that, or you want to actually start getting results, you're done with plateauing, dude, you need to reach out to Chris, because that value is so powerful, man, and it's one of the greatest blessings I believe you can give somebody is their physical vitality. And I want to drill in on something, because you talk about reframing it. And I believe owning the outcome is literally just that. It's whatever the situation is, you reframe that situation, your perspective, into something that's serving towards the outcome that you desire. And you can change your ability to do that that fast by changing your physical, like how are you holding yourself physically, your physiology, also your language, like we've talked about. And then also, what are you focusing on? Like, Headway, it's funny you mentioned that app.
Yeah,
Sorry, one more thing on the Headway app is because I loved that when I first started meditating, because my thought was, okay, my thought is meditation is not thinking about anything. And sure, that's what you're trying to get to. But the thing is it's not that. It's literally to feel. How are you feeling? But you're not reacting to it. You're feeling the emotion, but you're not controlled or responding to the emotion. You're just observing it. It's powerful.
It's tough.
And it is.
I think there's a great it's a viral video, but there's a man named Randy Pausch, and he wrote a little book, but he gave there's a viral, if you look it up, Randy Pausch's last lecture. And he's going over what he was like, I think one of the first pioneers in Pixar, and like the
phenomenal book. It's a book, right?
Book, right? Yeah.
Phenomenal.
But the great thing is at the end, he comes full circle, and it's really emotional because you don't know where he's going with this, but he's dying of pancreatic cancer. And so he says, you think that this talk is for you. It's not, it's for my kids. And then it's like, gets all emotional and stuff. But he says, look, you cannot control the cards that you're dealt, only how you play the hand. And that's really, it's so powerful, and it stuck with me, right? Is that we can't choose a lot of things. We can't control a lot of things. All we can control is, the moment. And through my 4 lung surgeries, I remember my basketball coach in high school sat me down, and it was like my first deep bout of depression. And I was 16, I was angry, and he just looks at me and he says, hey, I'm going to give you some advice that my football coach at Harvard gave me. I'm not going to explain it to you. You'll just figure it out. And I'm like, okay, what? And he says, picture yourself straddling a line. Your left foot's in the past, your right foot's in the future, and you're pissing on the present. And at 16, I was like, ew, like, what does that mean? He's like, get out of my office. And for years it haunted me. And then what I realized is that, we all live in the past. We dwell on it. It's done. Take the silver lining, move on. I worried about the what ifs. I lived in the what ifs, right? But you can't control any of that. So you just need to let that go. And all you have control of, if you really want to dictate where you want to go in life, you have to control the present, right? And there's tons of Eckhart Tolle, Power Now, and all these things. They're great books, but ultimately it's like, just let go of the things you don't have control over. And I have my clients venting to me about laundry list things, right? And I'll just say, reread what you wrote. All that stuff is outside your control. So let it go, right? So, yeah.
That's phenomenal, dude. Like, an exercise that I have done is, and I do, it usually happens every 6 months, at least a year, where I just start feeling this overwhelming feeling. And my belief is you go right into it. And so what I was trained to do is I list everything out. What's causing me to feel the way that I feel? And I just list it out. I get out of here and I just purge it out. And then I circle the things that I can control versus the things that and then I don't circle the things that I can't. The things that I can't I usually use a whiteboard, are erased. The things that I can control, now I prioritize and put a plan of action in place.
That's powerful. I've never really told any of my clients to write it down. I just tell them, like, think about, well, they text me, so it's physically there, but I think that's a good exercise to do, like, kind of like pros and cons, like, all right, just write it so you can visually see it. And then, I mean, that's a great exercise. I'm going to steal that.
But you led into this a little bit, but people look at you, you subtly said 4 lung surgeries. You had open heart surgery. You've struggled in the past. You've struggled with, depression, mental illness type stuff. You talk about it all the time. Most people would look at you and, well, like you said, they would look at you and be like, everything's just easy, or he has it. No, you've experienced struggle. You still experience struggle. That's a part of life. But it's like, do you believe that that's what separated you and makes you so uniquely qualified to serve those who you do?
10,000%, because I think I used, or I thought that my anxiety, depression, PTSD, and remember, like being a transracial adoptee, meaning my brothers and I were born from Korea, my entire family's white. So I
I didn't
identify,
know that.
yeah, so I identify as a white person until someone's racist to me. And then I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. But I think, uh, you know, that has been a struggle, right? And those are things that I'm slowly unpeeling and unpacking. You know, I started a birth parent search when I was 32. That's a long story, but yeah. So set that all aside. All the anxiety, depression, and the trauma I think I've had from the surgeries, and I almost killed me and my brothers in a car accident when I was in college, and you know, I think for a long time I viewed them as like I used them as the like a scapegoat. I was like, I'm never going to reach my potential because I'm plagued with these issues. And then once I realized, like stop being a fucking victim, then I realized it allows me to use what I once thought was a negative thing as almost a superpower, right? So I can empathize. And there's a great book that I love. It's called First Rate Madness. And it documents a lot of world leaders like Lincoln, Churchill, even to people like Stalin, Hitler, Martin Luther King, JFK, all of them struggled with mental illness, whether it's mania, depression, but their mental illness actually proved to help them serve and lead in times of turmoil. So like Lincoln believed in, you know, like because of his depression, he had 3 deep bouts of it, almost suicidal. But because of that depression, you know, he truly believed like, you know, it's not right to own someone, right? But if it wasn't for his mental illness, our history could be completely different. So it's a great book because it's saying, wow, these people struggle with these things, but it actually like gave them like a superpower, right? So
They reframed it like, oh my God, I just hope people hear what you just said and internalize what you just said, because that is reframing it. It's either a detriment or it's your superpower. And sometimes we think our past, or we think that things that we struggle with disqualify us or hold us back. No, no, no. They uniquely qualify you to connect with and serve others.
why do you think everyone loves superheroes? There is not one superhero that has a happy origin story. They're all coming out of the fires of trauma and just pain and suffering, but that's why we love them, right? And that's what sets them apart. So I always say, like, look, like there are modern day superheroes everywhere, right? And I think that's why I love superheroes, because it makes me feel like, all right, you know, Batman could choose to use his trauma and just be a victim, then we don't have Batman, right? And it's just like, no, they're using it as fuel, and that's a choice, right? So
Yeah.
you're like,
Choice.
I'm a product of, you know, abuse or what. And look, I'm not discounting that stuff is terrible, and I'm a big advocate for therapy, but there comes a time where you can say, look, I'm going to let this define me, or I'm going to use this as like a tool, right?
Yep.
And you know, it's again, all the stuff is easier said than done, but
Oh, yeah. Yes. And it's
it's
so much
powerful.
easier to talk about the things that other people struggle with than face your own struggles, because we all struggle with different things. And so, you know, it's so easy. It's way easier to chat about it than it is to do it. But I believe the only reason that you can sit here and confidently chat about it is because, dude, you've overcome a ton. Once again, you've used it as a superpower instead of as a detriment. And that's huge. Like
And I think
you're,
hitting rock bottom is okay. It's a good thing, right? I mean, my rock bottom moment, I remember, um, I was in the middle of a divorce. I had made a cross country move for a new job. Um, for all intents and purposes, I was broke. My grandmother passed away in that same month, and I ran over and killed a dog. Like it was a rock bottom moment. I remember I called one of my best friends, and he's a former SEAL. And I called him, I left him a message actually. And all I said to him was, this is the last message you're getting from me. I can't deal. I'm out. And then he called me right away and he said, dude, you know all about what I've been through. I struggle with it every day. And he says, but if you check out early, you're a fucking coward. And he says, we don't check out early. And that's all he said. We don't check out early. And then it just snapped me out. I was like, oh God, what? Yeah, I'm not a coward. Like, no, that's the easy way out, right? The hard thing is to live, right? So I'm like, all right. And for all intents and purposes, I mean, I will say that, he saved my life. So
yeah, I'm so glad, bro. He did with you the same thing you do with your clients, which he knew the leverage he could use. And he knew the leverage that he could use because he knew you and he loved and cared about you. The leverage that you can use with your clients. You mentioned it when you're talking about the phone calls you have with their ex-spouse, when they saw somebody, but that because you love and you care about them. That way you can use that as leverage for good. That's beautiful, man. It's so beautiful. So, and it's crazy how we can see that in other people, and we so many times will do things for other people, but sometimes in the moment with ourselves, we forget that, man, we got to love ourselves and see ourselves even more.
Yeah, I think that's been a real challenge for me, is learning to love myself. And I still struggle with it. I'm not going to lie. I was doing a sound bath meditation, and the woman running it, we were doing this thing afterwards. She's like, close your eyes and picture the one person that you love the most, right? That just is a super important person in your life. And the first person popped in my head was my mother. And then I can picture her. And then she says, okay, now that person that you see, tell them that you love them. And I'm like, okay, easy. So I'm like saying in my head, I'm like, love you, mom. And then she says, okay, what you just said to that person, I want you to now say it to yourself. And I was like, no, that I feel uncomfortable. And then I was like, oh no, that's not good. And, so that's all, I mean, look, we're all works in progress, right?
Oh yeah.
I struggle just as much as the next person. But I think, it's important to, I don't know, just understand that. I mean, I think of like most of my clients, like I said, are mothers. And what I see the most in mothers is that they, to me, are the modern day superhero. These women always put themselves last. They never ask for anything in return. And it's very difficult, specifically in this country, for them to ask for help, right? And now what happens is you're pouring from an empty cup. And yet we see all the plane safety videos, right? Like, God forbid those oxygen masks fall down. Whose mask do you put on first, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so working with mothers and helping them, A, dispel mom guilt, but B, I say this all the time, the most selfless thing you can do as a parent is to be selfish, right? Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're showing up as a subgrade version to the people that rely on you. But more importantly, what do you want to see? You want to see those kids grow up. You want to see those kids potentially get married, have children, grandkids. You want to play with those grandkids. Guess what? None of that is going to be a reality if you don't start taking care of yourself. So I think my program is really geared towards giving mothers the support that they desperately need. And even my clients who have great marriages, they find it difficult to ask their spouse for that. And plus, more importantly, you don't want your spouse being your nutrition coach. Like, that's track the divorce, right? So let me be that person, right?
Yeah.
And I see it a lot, and it's challenging for them. And I think even my own mother, how much she sacrificed for all of us. I think a lot of us take it for granted. So,
oh my gosh, I watch what my wife does, and it is crazy to me. Like, a common theme in my prayers is just like, thank you for Britt, obviously, and then her and I. But the theme is like the selflessness that she has, because it's crazy. And she's able to give so much because she very much takes care of herself. Like I look at physical energy is, like physical vitality is like I just look at energy is powerful, but I look at physical as like the capacity that you have, right? The amount of energy that you can give. Now look at the mental side, and it's like the quality of it, right? So physical is quantity, mental is quality, and then you have your spiritual side. And I believe the spiritual side is the force behind it, the impact, the true impact that you're able to make there. And she has all those things, man, because she makes sure that she has them.
Yeah. But I think it's a mixture of a couple things. Like I think most people that get married and have kids, obviously it's no longer about the relationship in the beginning. It's just about kids. And like, we just need to put that first, and you put your relationship on the back burner. And so even owning a CrossFit gym for 10 years in Miami, I saw many marriages right after that 20-year mark. I mean, people are just different. And if you don't grow together, then you're just basically roommates, and you're going to get divorced. So I think with mothers that, if we can help them understand that, it doesn't need to be like that. And I think oftentimes when that does happen, it's very easy to just say, well, this is just the way it is, right? You just become very accepting of it, And I'm like, no, like it's never too late, like literally, right? I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm in my 40s, I'm old. I'm like, that's actually not that old. It's not old.
Yeah.
Life expectancy for humans is growing. So like,
it's growing. Yeah.
Like, so if you want to use that story, then cool, right? But for all of us, we can impose self-limiting beliefs on ourselves. And like a great example, one of my business partners from the gym in Miami, his name is Tony Graff. I think my entrepreneurial spirit and drive, I owe a lot to him. I learned a lot opening a gym with him and my other partner who we bought out later. But anyway, so Tony was the alternate for 2 Olympics for Taekwondo. So he was a resident athlete at Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. He was the alternate in 2008. And I think it was either 2004, 2008, or 2008, 2012. Either way, so, he's all about, he has a Taekwondo school. He teaches kids. He's like a kid whisperer. This guy's like amazing. But I remember, when I was a kid, if you look at most baby photos of me and my siblings, triplets, because there's 8 siblings in my family, but just me and my triplet brothers, brother, sibling, Jeremy's non-binary. So if you look at those photos, I'm always crying, right? And so my grandmother dubbed me Chris the Crank. And so for my entire life, I've just identified, oh, I'm Chris the Crank. And Tony pointed out one day, he's like, dude, I don't like that. Like, that's negative. He says, do you realize that you've created, now you believe that. You believe that you're moody, you're irritable, because that's what you've been told since you were a child. He's like, why don't we call you Chris the coach, or Chris, like, you've just, like, think about that. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, you're not wrong. But, my grandparents, they thought it was cute, but I think it really shaped a lot of who I thought I was. Right. And that's how powerful the story we tell ourselves is, the words that we use. It's so impactful.
It's so impactful, man. I mean, I had mentioned earlier where you got your physiology, your physical state, like how you're carrying yourself. You have your focus and what you're focusing on, then language. And language is so powerful because it's the minute you put language around it is the minute that you have meaning. You give the event, the circumstance, whatever meaning. It's your identity, man. And if you're not feeling a certain way, it's because you need to change your focus. And, as achievers, you're an achiever. I'm an achiever. Those who are listening to this, they're not listening to this unless they're an achiever, but we're also hard on ourselves. And so what I've realized is I'm very hard on myself. And I've never told anybody this, bro, but I was doing an event. I do a bunch of events and I speak at these events, and they're just, I wasn't in the best mental state, and it's in the morning, and I have very consistent habits that I've created that help me right in the mornings, because my morning is just like it gets my whole thing going. But I was not in the right state. And I'm going to circle back to one thing that you mentioned, which is to tell yourself you love you, right? The sound bath meditation or healing that you did. And sound baths are amazing, man. And I remember standing in the mirror, and I was doing my affirmations in the mirror. But I'm like kind of looking at myself in the mirror as like not really in my eyes. But I had just I think it was something from Mel Robbins maybe that I'd listened to. What makes me think about it. But it was look in your eyes. And I looked, and dude, I build people up all day. I will breathe life into people all day. And I know you do the same. But I stand in the mirror and I look at myself in the eyes as I'm trying to, say these affirmations. And then I just stopped and I looked at myself and just stared at myself in the eyes. And then I told myself, I love you. And it's the first time that I've ever done that in my life, staring at my eyes in the mirror. And I said, I love you. And I just started crying, bro.
That gives me chills, because I'll be honest, I don't know if I can do that. Like, that's, wow.
But it completely changed my
so-
state.
So from there, do you find it easier to have that self-love?
I think
Still
it's a daily
challenge.
battle.
That's a daily
It's a
battle.
daily battle for sure. But the more self-work that I do, the more that I realize, like, man, becoming a parent has changed my relationship with myself and with God a lot, because I look at my kids and I look at my little boy Paxton primarily, because Paxton is Marley, my little girl, is like, she's just like, she'll go conquer the world, like that's like the mentality that she has. And Paxton is so talented, so smart, but because he's so smart, sometimes he's a thinker, so he overthinks. And I see this be detrimental to him in certain areas, like sports. It's like he sees himself lesser than those other kids. And I'm like, what I see is his greatness. I see that he's playing at half pace because he doesn't realize, like, he doesn't believe or have the confidence to go full pace. And so becoming a parent and seeing that and coaching him through that and walking him through that, I can't help but sit back and be like, damn it, I'm coaching myself. Like, I'm coaching myself. Sometimes I go half pace because I don't see me. And so I believe becoming a parent has been so beautiful for me, man, in so many areas, but for me, yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, I find myself struggling with imposter syndrome a lot. And, it's challenging. And I don't, like, for me also, I disassociate a ton, and it's it's just a coping mechanism. But I think once I started working with people one-on-one and, getting them to places of sustainability and helping them achieve things that they never thought that they could do, that to me, I mean, I'm originally an architect, right? So I left my profession in 2008 to open that gym in Miami, the CrossFit gym. But what I realized that I was never making a difference in architecture, right? So I felt like I can make a bigger difference on a smaller scale with an individual. And to me, that's more meaningful to me than, doing architecture. So.
Oh my God, especially with what you do, bro. Like I said this earlier, but I believe this to my core. It's one of the greatest blessings you can give somebody. It's one of the greatest blessings, their physical vitality, and you do it through a mental capacity, changing their viewpoints. It's like, bro, that's damn. It's so beautiful. It just is. So.
Yeah, I'm grateful.
You're a beast, bro. And I see this in you. And, I'll mention one more thing. You mentioned something about creating abs through laughter or six packs through laughter or something like that. And I absolutely love that approach so much, because I just believe that happiness breeds positivity breeds happiness, and positivity breeds success. And so it's finding ways to laugh through it. And man,
No, absolutely. I think that that's how my platforms really took off. Like, so,
That's
you know,
comedy too. You have comedy on that's funny as shit, bro.
it's pure comedy. So like my manager back in like March of 2020, which we're all very aware of that date, he
Mhm.
says, "Hey, get on a new platform." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Get on TikTok." I was like, "That's for 12-year-old girls. I'm not getting on TikTok." He's like, "No, no, no, no. Just get on, do some just scrolling, find a niche." He says, "But I want you to do something that has nothing to do with fitness. You want to
Mm.
showcase a different personality." Because at the time, my Instagram was just serious mental toughness, be consistent, blah, blah, blah. And so I was scrolling through TikTok, and lip syncing videos were popping up back then, and they were just funny to me. And there was this show on Comedy Central, I don't think it's on anymore, it's called Drunk History. And so it's just like people lip sync, and I think it's funny. So I was like, okay, so I'll do that. And during the pandemic, I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about, maybe coping with alcohol, because I think we're all doing that, mental illness, and coffee. That's all I did. And it was all comedy. And within 18 months, I hit over 1 million followers. And I was like, whoa, like this is awesome. And then Instagram was late. So then once, my team wanted me to focus a little more on Instagram, because obviously there are more people that have disposable income on Instagram than TikTok. I was like, I don't know what to do, because I don't like Instagram. And then right now, Instagram is very much what I think TikTok was in 2020, right?
Mm.
And so then I realized, like, look, laughter is a universal language.
Yeah,
And
oh, gosh, great way to put that.
yeah, and I think we all can agree that the world needs more laughter right now, right?
Hmm.
It's a lot of doom and gloom. It's scary out there. I get it, but I'm like, look, I want to talk about serious topics, but through a comedic lens, right? And
Hmm.
that's kind of what I do. So my content, some of it is just pure comedy. I just think it's funny or relatable, but other stuff, it's talking about these deeper issues, right? Um, in a way that's lighthearted, right?
Yep.
Uh, and so that's really more my brain. I think that's why a lot of people follow me, because they just laugh. And I was like, look,
Yeah.
if I can make you laugh, then that's a win, right?
Totally, bro. It's what made me like you. Like I followed you because I respected your physique and what you do, but I started to like you because I saw more of you, which is your comedy, which
Yeah.
is just
And-
you.
yeah. And I think also I make it very clear, and I do my best to be as transparent as possible, because I think the one issue I have with social media is that most people just want to show the highlights. And I'm
Hmm.
like, that's all great, awesome. But, when I was going through my heart surgery, my team was like, hey, this is going to sound a little odd, but can you just film all of it and post it? And I'm like,
Mm.
hey, I don't know what type of state I'm going to be in coming out of open heart surgery. B, I'll do my best. And honestly, those were viral videos, because again, you're looking at someone that's super fit to then literally starting back at zero. And then I wanted to show not only people that follow me, but my clients that, hey, look, it's very easy for me to compare myself to where I once was.
Mm.
That old me is gone. So I need to learn, and everyone needs to learn, to enjoy the process of rebuilding. Because too
Mm.
often my clients show me pictures of when they were younger. I was like this and I was like that and all this stuff. And I'm like, look, that's neither here nor there. That's great. But you're living in the past, right? And I guarantee you, we can get you to a place that's even better than that, right?
Yes. Yes.
So um, I don't care how many followers you have, just be honest. And then what bothered me is I think 6 months after my open heart surgery, I think Jamie Foxx was going through some health issues, and I just saw in the news, or I saw some like interview or whatever, and he's like, I didn't want to post about that on my social media platforms. I was like, man, that was a missed opportunity, right? Because you're fucking Jamie Foxx, right? Like, I think that
Hmm.
would have, like, really connected you with a lot of people, because now you're just showing the good stuff, right? And it's
I
okay to
fall
be.
guilty of that, bro. I definitely fall guilty of that. It's a call out for me. I do. It's a lot more fun to record the fun stuff, you know?
Yeah, of
Yeah, but
course.
it's a missed opportunity. There's
Yeah.
lots of shit every day.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
talked about my divorce. I talked about, me ending my engagement right after my heart surgery. I talked about, you know, every day, like any day I have like a struggle or I have a deep bout of depression, like I talk about it because, you know, there are too many people out there that are struggling alone. And we know, you know, men are 4 times likely to commit suicide, right? And we need to dispel this idea that, oh, you're less manly when you talk about your feelings. And so that's what you know, I just want to, if I can share that, and if that gets one guy to reach out to someone and talk, I mean, that's a win, right?
That's a win, bro. That's a win. That's 100% a win. Enjoy the process of rebuilding. That has to be the name of the title of that episode, bro. Enjoy the process of rebuilding, because it should be an enjoyable process, dude. Even the struggles, you can find joy in the struggles. You can find joy in the challenges by reframing them, and because you know what you're working towards, right? And you're proud of yourself for putting in the work right now to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, having to rebuild every time after a lung surgery, you know, that's where I started learning early on. I was like, look, I can be, you know, boohoo, look at me, you know, or I could say, look, I mean, these are the cards, right? How am I going to play this hand, right?
That's it. Thank you for the work that you do, bro. And just for the person you are, and for being willing to share it. It's a selfless thing. And listen, I'm just going to stress it again. I'll put all your links and things in the show notes. But for those of you who are ready to start producing results, get help. Get help to produce the results. Like you said, your spouse can't be that person, and they can't. Don't put them in that position, because they don't want to say the tough things that need to be said, because they love you too much. And sometimes, man, we need people that love us, but don't have the emotional tie that you know, a spouse does, which means you're able to say
your
things
spouse
that
looking at you over your shoulder and say, are you really gonna eat that cookie?
yeah,
Like,
hey, are you sure?
yeah.
You're,
Or how are your pants fitting? Are they
yeah,
tight? Like, can you
that's
imagine?
it.
Imagine?
No shit. Nice. No.
Yeah.
Britt could say that to me. Britt could
Yes.
say that to me. I'll be like, let's go.
Exactly. It's completely different dynamic, right?
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Dude, thank you, brother. I'll put everything in the show notes. Those of you who don't follow, go follow. Also, go share this episode, man. People need to hear these tools, these things, and they definitely need to connect with Chris. Chris, thank you for owning the outcome. Thank you for taking the time to be on here. Appreciate you, man.
thank you for having me. This was awesome. And I'm sure we'll talk soon.
110. And everybody else out there, live always with aloha. Peace.